Everyone loves trying different startup strategies in your Dynasty leagues. There's lots of them that we can go through, but I wanted to try something that hasn't been coined, hasn't really been talked about much at all, and most people probably don't even know exists. And maybe it could be the best strategy of them all. Welcome back to the Dynasty Nerds YouTube page. I'm Garret Price, and I want to tell you about a strategy that I used this summer on one of my startups. Now, this is a thought that I've had for a little while, and I wanted to test it out. And granted, this is only one example from one league. I'm going to do it more in the coming years, but I wanted to test this theory and just kind of see how it worked out. And it's going to sound like a little bit of an arrogant strategy when you hear the name, but it's called the you can have it all strategy. Yeah, maybe I'll come up with a better name that sounds a little bit better. But basically, what I want to do is I want to implement the best parts of the productive struggle strategy. If you're not familiar, basically how that works is you trade a lot of your startup assets and you trade them for future draft picks in the coming years. But there's other people that utilize a contender strategy. And I basically want to take those two concepts, put them together, and can I get something that's pretty solid? And I think no matter how it turns out, you're in a pretty good shape either way. So let's dig into what I did here. I traded away everything I had in the first 3 rounds. And in fact, I traded my first 6 startup round picks. Now, I used some of those and I traded a little bit here and there. So I did acquire some other picks inside rounds 4, 5, and 6. But basically, I traded my own pick all the way up until round 6. So rounds 1 through 5, I traded my own. I had a couple other picks that were inside rounds 4 and 5. But what I did was I traded all of that for draft capital. I wanted to try to get as many first round picks as I could possibly get. Then everyone thinks you're rebuilding. You're going through that productive struggle. Then you flip the script. And so while I was able to do this, I was able to acquire 5 first round picks in 25 and 2 first round picks in 26 total. Now that includes my own picks. But I ended up actually moving my own first round pick in 2025. And this is what you can do with this strategy because people think it's going to be the one-on-one because you're in full rebuild. So you trade your own, get high-end profit for it, and then you flip the script. Then I took a bunch of players in rounds 4 through 10. So here's what it looked like. I have now finished up 4 first round picks in 2025 and 2 in 2026. So I have the future rebuild that you would want in a productive struggle. I have all those draft assets. I have all those players. But instead of in those later rounds taking young players like you traditionally do, take players that are going to help you win now. So in the 4th round, I was able to get Jonathan Taylor. And that's when everybody was like, it's kind of an odd choice. Typically, people don't go after running backs that early if they're going to be in complete rebuild. Then in the 5th round, I went Travis Etienne and Kirk Cousins. Now, I might have gone a little bit early on Kirk Cousins. This draft happened before the NFL draft, so I might have gone a little bit early there. And then in the 6th round, so I had 2 5th-round picks. Actually, make that 3 5th-round picks. I forgot. I went Jonathan Taylor, Mark Andrews at 5-1, and then Travis Etienne and Kirk Cousins at 5-9 and 5-10. So, lots of good assets. Then in round 6, I was able to add DK Metcalf, Stephon Diggs, and Cooper Kupp. So totally fill my roster out with good starting wide receivers. So I'm not going to go every round by round, what I drafted. But here's what the final product looked like. In my starting lineup, I have Kirk Cousins, Jonathan Taylor, Travis Etienne, Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf, Cooper Kupp, Mark Andrews, and then in the flex spots, I have Chris Godwin, Najee Harris, and then at the super flex spot, I have my options of Matthew Stafford or Aaron Rodgers. So This is a team that can absolutely compete right now. Now, is it going to officially end up being the best team in the league? I don't know. We'll see. If very easily with older players, guys can get hurt and whatnot. But these are all players that have the potential to be towards the top first, like a wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2, running back 1, running back 2. Like these are all players that have a chance to finish very well. And then I do have a couple key backups like Nick Chubb. If Nick Chubb comes back decently healthy, he could be a key backup for me. At the wide receiver position, I got Mike Williams, and then I have some young guns actually that I got later on in Jermaine Burton and Xavier Legette, which ended up both getting pretty solid draft capital. I even have Ben Sinnott or Sinnott, depending on how you look at it, as my one of my backup tight ends. So I still have some young assets, but my focus was getting all players that can win now. So here's the beauty of this. If things go well, this team competes, and I put myself in a position to win a championship this year. But the problem with going all in is you know that you're going to have to rebuild very quickly. I won't have to. My rebuild is already in place. So if this is successful, my rebuild's already ready to go. So even when these guys age out in the next year or two, for most of them, there's a couple that have 3, 4, 5 years. But for the most part, this is a 1 to 2 year team with a lot of these players. My rebuild's already in place, but I can do a few other things too. Let's say I start the year off, does not go as planned. My team is not good enough in the starting lineup. I don't have enough depth, whatever it is. Well, then I trade away pieces that are good win now pieces for other teams and help even bolster that rebuild more. So now instead of 5 first, I'll get up to 7 first and in 2025. And then maybe I'll have 3 or 4 first in 2026. I'll trade all those assets to get me future assets. Or, I push it as far as it can and no, I lost in the second round of the playoffs. Well, I have plenty of guys and picks to help rebuild for the future. So I like this strategy. I think it gives you a little bit of everything, and it also adds some real flexibility because let's say I'm close, but I decide I want to go all in even more. Well, I'll take some of those first round assets that I've acquired, and then I can utilize those for my team. So I can trade 2 first round picks, and I can get myself a top end wide receiver to really help push for this year. So let's say I can go after an AJ Brown. I could go after like whoever you want. Name a player that's going to help you win this year. I can go after Tyreek Hill. I can go after players like this. That's what these draft picks will allow you to do. So it adds a lot of flexibility. It allows you to win now and win in the future. I think it's a really unique strategy that I don't hear people talking about. And I know there'll be people in the comments say, I've been doing this for years. And that's awesome. Congratulations. You were ahead of the curve. But for the most part, in the general public, this isn't something that's being talked about as a potential strategy in your startup. And I think it should be. So put in the comments below, what's your thoughts on this strategy? Would you consider doing this strategy in your next offseason?